Yeah,
My
we're
new
recording
mantra.
now.
Okay, I'm
I
ready.
just turned it on.
Okay.
Here, give me that thing.
All right.
Here we go.
Well, I just want to see if that's the right one
Okay.
What is that?
because I brought down a.
It's a wine bottle opener.
Yeah.
Oh God.
And I was about to get really offended.
I know.
I thought you were going to be like, let me.
Hell
All right.
no.
Uh,
There's a story behind this
I was
bottle.
going to lay down the law on Mr. Ben Cunningham just then. I was like, if you think you're touching that bottle. Okay. So tonight, we went out and we were like, we need to just kind of get some drinks and stuff for dinner. Like, I didn't really have anything. Ben didn't really have anything. So we're like, we'll run over to Jackson and head, what was it called?
If I recall, I said, what do you think Alicia's drink of choice is?
Well, I'm getting
like
to
I
that
got-
part. I'm talking about like
Like when we were here.
Well, no, I was. Oh, you think that's like what
Didn't I say that?
initiated the
No,
run?
no, you had the look in your eye
What
that like you wanted to go on a run.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Like
I
you wanted
had
to
it.
physically
No,
run.
like run to town.
like do
I'm like,
do a
geez,
liquor run.
That is commendable.
Well, I just got done running,
Yeah.
but we won't need
Oh.
to talk about that on the
No,
podcast.
hell no. Not yet, at least.
But anyway, so we decided to go to the liquor store before we came back for dinner, and we were like, "Oh, we're gonna do the podcast. Like, we should get something for that." I was like, "Well, what should we get?" And both of us kind of decided we were like, he's doing the carnivore diet, so like no beer, and we had bourbon last night, and I was kind of bourboned out. So we was like, well, it's a wine kind of night. We'll do a red wine and stuff. And we're looking at the wines, and I mean, I don't really know much about wine. Do you?
Only what I picked up from other people that know something. No,
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah. So anyway, we do what most people do, and we just look at the labels, right?
And act like you look smart.
Yeah. Well, so then this one
Oh, that
has a
was
cowboy on it.
That
Maybe
is
that's what we
beautiful.
should get, right? And it's so simple. It just says ride.
It really spoke to you. I
Yeah,
can see.
exactly. I was like, sure, let's do that. And so, Ben had to get some stuff, and I was like, well, I'll get this, and that'll be like fun for the podcast.
Yeah.
And I rock up and give the lady at the counter this bottle, and it was on the wrong shelf because this bottle of wine was like almost $50.
Wow.
Yeah.
We are going for it.
Well, okay. That's the thing. I just, whatever it is about like, I don't know if it's like a service or like cashiers and waiters and stuff. I'm like not good in those situations. I can't be the person who's like send this back, or like, I don't want to buy this now. So she just rings it up, and I'm like looking
Well,
over
I
at
guess
Ben who's
doing
checking
that.
out. And I was like, I guess this is how much money I'm spending on wine tonight now, on this one bottle of wine.
That's something I would do because I don't feel comfortable in confrontation in that moment
Exactly.
where I'm like, oh, I didn't intend on spending this much, and now I'm going to feel awkward returning this bottle back to the shelf for a $12 bottle of wine.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
That is exactly.
Well, let me
how
look
I
at it
felt.
really quick.
Yeah.
I just
Take it in.
want to take it in. Oh, cool.
Right. It's from, I think it says like born in California, raised in Texas or something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. California born, Texas raised.
It's like a Napa Cav Sav. So,
Well, it can only be great.
yeah. Well, if it's not great,
You're
I
taking
am
it back.
going to be very angry.
You're taking it back.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, this is the
Well,
bottle
let
of
me
wine
know
for the
because
podcast.
my glass is already half full.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Rebecca helped you out.
I know
there, I
she
saw.
does a swift pour.
She was very generous.
She always is very, very generous. I will
Well,
say
it's all
that.
good. Well, it doesn't have to be tonight, but you should at least try this because
Oh, I will.
This was bought for you, and it wasn't meant to be such a big to do, but now it is. So,
Trust me. You don't have to twist my arm to try that. It looks very delicious.
yeah, pretty good.
But today was a ton of fun.
Oh yeah,
It was.
yeah. While I do this, like Ben, you want to give some context of like where we are, what we're doing, and stuff.
But to like fill like some kind of a void
Yeah,
of like no talking. for these people.
Well, I'm not going to talk, so time for you.
Silence is lost, though, these days. There's not many silent podcasts. Like, I don't know about you, but
I have to say I really appreciated the podcast you guys did with Joe Walter.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a lot of moments of pausing. And I'm sitting there and I'm waiting for the next nugget of wisdom. So
yeah,
it was a fun interview.
Oh, yeah.
I think you all did a great job.
I'll pass that to you. Fill her right up, only to an eloquent level.
Yeah, this is going to be
make it look like you know how to pour wine, because I know you're good at that. Oh yeah. Well, I can try to do it. I'll do it with some pauses, and I'll talk about what we did today.
I'm going to try to pause some more.
So, we're here in the studio. We're at Stony Creek Ranch. So, we were involved in a roping clinic with Bill Barnes today. But we're glad you came down, Alicia. When Bill said you were coming for the clinic, he was like, oh, that's great. Because it's going to be like a party. Because I already knew Joe was coming and a bunch of other people. So,
well, I didn't know Joe was going to be here. So that was like a cool part of the end of my week when I found out that you were going to be here and we're all going to be here. And
nice.
I was like, this is cool that we're all getting together. And I have never, I cannot believe in all the years that I've lived in Nashville, which has been 11 years that I haven't been down here, because I've known about Bill's place and I've heard about it. And so I just hope that this is the start of something that I can do more.
Well, and on top of that, we've had a couple of repeat guests on the podcast, but you're the very first in-person podcast in this nice little studio set up here. We've never had anybody sit down like this, where like we really have our poop in a group and everything's lined out, and we have wine and,
well, I apologize.
kind of like matching ball caps somewhat and all that.
Yeah.
I feel bad that
She's
that's
one
me.
of.
We wish we could do every podcast like this, because frankly, like you get on the air and we've discovered that you can have issues with delays and Wi-Fi. And like, it's bad enough that people nowadays are poor at conversation, and like we're included in that. So we talk over each other. I'm probably the worst of the bunch. And so then you start talking over the internet, and it's way worse. And then you can't read each other, or someone's face will freeze, or their picture goes out. So now it's like being on the phone with three people, two other people. You're the third wheel. And it's like, it's really hard to like pay attention sometimes. So when you can sit down like this, like we would love to do every one of them like this. So you're the first person that we've been able to do this with.
Well, thanks for asking me to come, and cheers to a great day horseback. I'm super glad to be learning from you all, and this is really special to be here. It's a gorgeous place. It was a perfect day, and I learned a lot, which always makes me super happy.
Yeah.
Well, let's not waste the moment. We got to talk about this wine too. What do you think?
How would you rate the wine?
It's actually really good. What do you think? So
yeah, I want to hear you kind of expound on the.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I'm not a big wine drinker, but when I do drink wine, it's usually a Cab Sav like this, because that's what Kaylee likes. So a lot of those that are maybe, I guess, like a lower shelf Cab Sav, the aftertaste is not near as smooth as this wine. Like, you can drink it and taste the wine, and then there isn't that like it's like you're drying out the roof of your mouth, like drinking the wine.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah. And it's tough because, like,
I'm getting a lot of grape.
You bet.
Is there any leather?
No.
Cigar?
A little like wood.
Woody?
Like maybe from a
That's
wine barrel.
Okay.
And grape.
Seems about right. Mine's a lot like that too. I forget what I'm drinking, but Rebecca poured it, so.
I think that's the other one we got. That was the
14 hands.
Yeah, the 14 hands.
No, that's not this. This
Yeah.
is
Well,
something-
Rebecca came in the kitchen and she was looking for wine,
Oh.
and I gave her the 14 hands.
Well, Nick opened something and it was something totally different than 14 hands.
But was that the most recent glass she poured you?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Something different.
Because she came in and poured a glass for somebody.
Huh. Yeah, I need to find out what I'm drinking. I have no idea, but I like it.
Okay.
So
There you go.
at least we know that.
Yeah. Yeah, we went like the super basic route. We got 2 bottles of wine. One had a cowboy on them and the other just had a horse on them. We're like, yep, that's
gonna
us. That's my personality. Don't worry about it.
I love that.
Well, I probably ought to finish my explanation just a teeny bit for anybody listening. But we're here with Alicia, and it's the first day of the Bill Barnes Clinic. And tomorrow we'll be roping again, working with Bill, and then Sunday morning as well. And then you'll be heading home.
Mhm.
So we're just getting started. So
Yay.
it's like our first night. We're having lots of fun, but I guess we can't stay up too late. Got to get back to it tomorrow. But that's what we're doing. We're in Forsyth, Georgia, here with Alicia Landman, and having some wine.
Yeah, this has been great. And it's still going, which is wonderful.
Oh, we're just getting going.
We're
Yeah.
just getting started.
Wait, the podcast or the roping clinic?
All of it.
Okay.
Yeah. Both of which we're in like the front 9 of right now. So
Yeah.
it's going to be good.
Well, I think, Joe, you had stuff you wanted to kind of start off with, and just
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So Ben and I were talking about this. So at this point, you know, a lot of people know who you are, and obviously Ben and I kind of heard about you through the grapevine before we ever had you on the podcast. And at this point, I think she's the 3rd person who's like a repeat guest on the podcast. So, one thing we were really interested in is talk about how much like fame and notoriety getting on this podcast the first time gave you.
I mean, it's been amazing. I have had so many sponsorship deals, and I mean, my Instagram and Facebook. I mean, I think they just had to tap out because you can't keep up with it. So I think we're going to have to do some revamping of the.
Yeah, we'll get you a PR person, someone who
That's
knows
exactly
that
what I
stuff.
need. No, it was fun though, because there were conversations that came up afterwards and people asking things, and so I really appreciate you guys asking me to be on here, even though I don't really think anything I have to say is, profound by any means. And but it's fun to talk about horses all the time and be around people who enjoy it as much as I do. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys.
No, that's the thing we have found is when we started this. I mean, it was here at the ranch. We recorded the first 2 episodes, and we were like, dude, that was just gibberish. There is no one who's going to listen to that. And, obviously we've grown as we do more episodes and kind of build our consistency. But for whatever reason, people do listen. And I don't know about you, but I was talking about this with Ben yesterday. It's kind of wild when people in like real life come up to you and like, oh, I heard you say something on the podcast, or like, yeah, I remember you talking about that on the podcast. Cause at least in my brain, it's like, this is something I do every week. Usually it's like over the internet, and then we post it, and then I go like with my regular life.
Right.
And there's absolutely no intersect. Like besides talking to Ben, it's almost like he's the only other person in my like realm of influence that knows I have a podcast. And then it'll be like random people. Like there's some people I know, like my barber the other day brought it up because they
That's great.
saw it, like my like aunt or uncle shared it, or something like that. And like it's just funny because it doesn't feel real. But
well, and there's so many hours that, if we think about it, and especially for myself, that I spend driving and sitting in a truck. And, you know, of course I could be listening to the radio, which I love listening to music, but I think I've found that I love even more just hearing about other people's lives and what they have going on and the things that they are enjoying or the things they're struggling with. And so it is really fun to have a podcast where you can like connect with people and you feel like you know them, you know,
Oh,
just
yeah.
through conversations. And so it's awesome. That's really helpful because for me, I spend so much time driving that I thoroughly enjoy having something to listen to and with like-minded people. So I'm glad you guys do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of grown into something neat. We were talking about it tonight when we were going to town, that we get so much out of this. And you were for sure one of the people that came on that we learned stuff from, but it's not even that people come on and they're teaching you technical things. Like, we didn't set out to do that. You might pick something up every now and then, but it's the fact that you can appreciate people that have worked really hard. And every week, maybe not every week, we get a couple lazy people through every now and then, but you most weeks you talk to somebody who's worked really hard and accomplished a lot. And like, we spend the rest of the week, sometimes the next morning, we were talking about that on the way to town. Like, we interviewed somebody and both of us, like, the next morning, we're like ready to ride horses and get after it.
It's very inspiring
because you appreciate all the work they've done. And, you know, it's easy to like look at everybody different and judge people for how they do this or that. But when you meet most people, like, most people have some good qualities. And generally they have more than they have bad. And then a lot of the people, like, I mean, we try to stick to people that like we like and we'd like to talk to and are somewhat successful, even if they're like just productive and haven't done anything yet. So you get this great sense of like encouragement from that.
Yes.
And I don't know, like Joe said, like, I don't know why people listen to it, but it certainly helps us. And we were thinking back, like, if we hadn't done this, we've probably been doing it about 6 months. If we hadn't started doing this, like, how bland would our life be? Like, I'm sure we could have found something else to do, but maybe we would have filled the void with something more just like really binary, just commonplace, just kind of slugged it out in some other area of our life. But to take the time to do something fun like this and educational, like, has just enriched our lives more than we realize.
Well, and I don't know if you guys know this, but when I'm driving in the truck, and a lot of times Riv is with me, and she's like, Mom, this is so great. This is cool. Like, she's learning stuff too. So it's cool to know that you're influencing other people too. May not be, 20, 30, and 40-year-olds, but an 11-year-old child who's like, well, what one can we listen to next? That's pretty awesome. Like,
That is cool.
She's learning stuff that she would never otherwise learn. So that's pretty cool.
And I think we're learning it at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah. There's been a huge learning curve for all of this. Like, I don't think there hasn't been a single episode, even the ones where it's just you and I talking, where just like the dialogue and being able to express your thoughts in kind of a more formal setting than just, thinking about them by yourself. Like, that is just so beneficial. And then you throw on top of that, like, all the cool people we get to talk to, and then they instill their wisdom. But honestly, like, having to prepare and think about what you're going to say, we're not a scripted podcast by any means, but you say, okay, how do I have a conversation with Buck Brannaman? How do I have a conversation with Joe Walter, or whoever? Like, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? Like, you really have to kind of be engaged. And it's kind of almost like a mental exercise that you wouldn't otherwise do, because you wouldn't ever really think about being in that position. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know how you feel, but that definitely seems to stretch me, as far as like making me think about issues or my perspective, or like, what are my habits in my daily life, things like that.
Yeah. Well, you said we're not a scripted podcast. That's definitely true. But you said it's more of like an exercise to try to think about how to respond and how to have a conversation. I think that's so true, because the best podcasts I think we've done, neither one of us have prepared for it. It's like a long day. We're texting each other. I'll be home at 6:30. I know we said we're going to do it at 6, so let's push it a little later. And it's like somebody that's like kind of famous, like people know them and they've done a bunch of stuff, and I only know their name. That's it. And there's a certain point where we know we have that guest that's coming on, and I'll think about it and I think, I'm going to study and I'm going to prepare, and I don't know, life gets going. And next thing you know, you haven't done any preparation. You know their name. Joe gives me their email. We send them the invite. You sit down, turn it on, and it's the best podcast ever.
That's pretty cool.
Because like you don't have time to think ahead of time, and it kind of forces you to get there and get present, pay attention.
Yeah, and I think in this day and age with technology and us getting on our phones and just getting too busy to pay attention to what's around us in the moment, it's a very noble thing, because it gives hope that people do want to have conversations and they do want to sit down and not be plugged in all the time to what's going on social media and all that stuff. And
Yeah. Cause I mean, think about it. Our short podcasts are still over an hour long, and we're not, we're not like a Saturday morning cartoon. We're not like super involved. So you got to really want to be a part of it to sit down and listen to a whole thing. But I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because people do it. And slowly but surely, more and more people are doing it, which is kind of wild. But
yeah,
we'll just keep doing it.
Do you guys like track how many people are listening, or do you?
Well, I mean, I'll speak for me. We see that number, but I don't like necessarily measure that as success. Right. Like Ben said, it hasn't dropped yet, but one of the more recent podcasts we've done, both of us at the end of it were like, man, we nailed that, you know? And just because it was like a super enriching conversation for the two of us. So that to me is the win, right? Like you kind of have to view it. I mean, it'd be no different as if you were like going to go show your horse or whatever. Like maybe you don't win, maybe you don't get X amount of listens, but
it just
I really benefited from that. And like our show as a whole really benefited because there was some substance to it. Because I mean, let's be honest, we were just in it for the listens. There's like, we could talk about other stuff besides like horses and horsemanship and get more people engaged. It might be like kind of a parlor trick and we might fizzle out. But if we were just worried about the listens, we probably wouldn't have the conversations we have.
Right.
So it's not even worth thinking about those numbers. But we do see them. And I mean, when they go up, it is nice. But once that becomes the goal, you're done.
Yeah, exactly.
You just gotta love the process and just keep having good talks every week.
Yeah,
it's true. And I feel like that's the meat and potatoes to what life is all about, is, having great conversations that are meaningful to you, that you get something out of, and it's enjoyment. And that's what life's about. I think.
Yeah. I mean, because like Joe said, same here. You see that number, but also like we do get some feedback even, and it's weird because like it's not that, if you guys could all see the number, it's nothing nuts, right? But you get some feedback enough that like early on we had some folks, and it's really nice. It's really cool that people want to engage and say hi, but then you start getting like the, hey, think you guys are doing a great job. I got some ideas if you guys would ever like to sit down. And at first, I think I like to hear what people have to say a lot of times. So early on, you would get a message like that. And I remember talking to Joe or forwarding it to him. And in my mind, like my first reaction is like, oh, it's a nice person. They have a good heart. Maybe they have something to say. But like the more we talked about it, the thing's only good because we enjoy it. And the ones where we say, oh, we nailed it, it's not because we kind of heard ourselves in the third person and thought, dang, I would like to listen to that. No, we liked doing it while we were doing it.
Right.
Like it was fun. We weren't thinking about anything else. We had fun time with the person we were talking to. We learned something. And so when somebody says, hey, I have some ideas, it's like, well, start a podcast then.
Yeah.
Tell us how it goes. Because we have some ideas. Like we're already working on our ideas. And so we love all that interaction. And I think what's funny is early on, you get maybe a little, it's exciting that someone would pay attention enough to send you a message. But then now it's like, that's great. It's wonderful to hear, but you just kind of say.
It's kind of like when you're loading a horse on the trailer.
Yeah.
And you're just taking your time, doing your thing. And then somebody comes up and like, hey, you need a little help?
Yeah.
And they bring out the broom and then they bring out, and you're like, no, actually, I don't really need any help with that right now.
Yeah.
Oh, I got a hilarious.
Tell that story.
Yeah. Hilarious story.
I'm going to go to the bathroom.
All right. No worries. Yeah. You know it. So Bill got that new trailer and it's like it got the tack room in the rear, 3 slants in the center, massive living quarters in the front. So the horse area is comfortable, but it's a little bit tough to like get through that little door. And I had taken his horses through Belton, Texas, or it was Greenville. And Tim Ryan has an arena there. I don't know if you've been to Greenville where Buck does a clinic. So I left his horses there, went up to Denver, picked up the new trailer and came back through. So it's like a Friday. No, it was like a Thursday afternoon because I was going to get to Belton Friday night for that Thursday night for the clinic starting Friday morning. So Tim Ryan and his wife, they're super great folks. They've got this arena there and they host a bunch of shows. They'll have, demolition derbies come in there, I think. And they have, bands come. They have sheepdog contests, horse contests. That afternoon, they have like a Shetland pony contest or something, whatever they do. And I'm trying to load these 3 horses on there that have all been sitting at his place for a week. And they're kind of cramped and they're kind of like cranky and they've been in the stall. And now I'm asking them to go through this little door on a brand spanking new trailer that smells like, all kind of chemicals in a factory. And so I don't know if you know his mare Kitty, but she's the metallic cat mare. And she's kind of like looking at it like, I don't think so. So I'm like, well, I should start with her first because I'll be here a while. And I had plenty of daylight left. And I was like, I'll take my time and do my deal. So I'm just taking my time and letting her go up the ramp and come off the ramp. And I'm petting her and all that stuff. Pretty soon there's like a little group of like helpers starting to congregate to watch. And they're all like a little bit out of shape, all like a little bit like just not like your typical horse hand, right? But they look like they're more than willing to help. And I just ignored them and I'm just trying to put the horse on the trailer. And then finally, like the leader of the group pipes up. And I should state first, like this group, I don't know if you've ever saw like a group of people haul a horse onto a trailer with like water hoses behind their butt, and people pushing, and some people beginning to hit and punch, and they're all yelling and they're like, get on the trailer, Buttercup. They look like they had done that a few times. So finally the leader of the group pipes up. She goes, need any help? And I didn't even look up, but I wasn't rude. And I just said, no, it's all right. I'm going to take my time and it's going okay. And everyone dispersed, and the one lady just kept standing there. And so I kept doing my thing. And then finally, I kind of looked over, and I acknowledged her slightly. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful. I was working on something. And when I acknowledged her, she kind of like grunted a little bit, and like nodded her head and turned and walked off. She makes it about 10 paces away, and she kind of stops with authority and turns around. She goes, all I was going to do was cluck. I just about lost it. I laughed my butt off for the rest of the day. And I mean, I was driving out of there still laughing. It was so funny because they had done more than cluck for sure. But the fact that she was like so indignant.
That's awesome.
But that was the best like horse loading helpers I'd come across.
Please start clucking.
Yeah. I should have like been like, oh, come on back. I had no idea.
Should have just stood there and let her cluck. and then just shown her
I had no idea you had such
how
tricks
effective the cluck was.
up your sleeve.
Should have been like, oh, why didn't you say so?
Yeah,
let's do that.
If it's that easy.
See, I hadn't been doing podcasts then, so I didn't have that like quick response,
Yeah.
knee-jerk reaction going yet. But now,
Well, usually when people say something to me, it's precisely 4 days later when I come up with like the exact awesome thing that I should have said.
Oh, heck yeah.
But I don't say it, and it's just, it irks me. I'm like, why couldn't I have thought of that right in the moment? It would have felt so good.
Yeah.
But
I'm always, that happens to me, and I'm always in the shower for whatever reason. For like the shower, or just like when I'm like alone, like not thinking about anything else, that's when I like replay those conversations in my mind.
oh, yeah.
I fully stand by my two favorite types of stories are like trailer loading stories and how we got this horse shod stories.
Oh, yeah.
Those are my two favorite types of stories.
Yeah.
My favorite, I won't say who it was, but my favorite trailer loading story was like someone, and it was actually someone who like that at the time we were talking about it, they knew how to like load horses properly, and we were talking about it. And he was like, well, you know, don't be embarrassed. Like if you didn't know, like I didn't know for a long time. And I was like, oh really? And he's like, oh, I've loaded a horse on a trailer every way you could think of. Like I've loaded a horse on a trailer with a front end loader on my tractor.
Wow.
Yeah, I had to get this horse to the vet, and I figured, well, they're already going to the vet. She won't get on the damn trailer, so I'm going to load it up there at the front end loader.
Wow. Lordy.
Oh, but they're just, they're endlessly entertaining trailer loading stories.
It's true.
yeah,
Because and again, like, obviously the nice thing would be if everyone just kind of understood how to peacefully load their horse on a trailer, and hopefully one day it'll be like that. But if you hear it from someone who maybe hasn't had that type of education yet, it's always an odyssey. It's always, well, and then,
Yeah.
and then, and then. And I love to hear about the wheels turning and like, what's the next trick?
yeah.
That's so true. And it's a testament, I think, to people's patience and commitment to truly understanding the fundamentals, because a lot of the people that I've met that have been long-term clients and friends, that's how we met, was like, oh, well, here's a girl's number that might be able to help you get the horse on the trailer. And so you get the horse on the trailer, and then they're like, so you ride? And I'm like,
Nope, just load
no, I just
horses
put
on
horses
trailers.
on trailers. That's all I do. And it just made me laugh so hard, because I'm like, actually, riding is the number one thing.
Yeah.
And this just happens to be one of the hot topics of, you know, how you end up meeting people that actually need help. And then you find out that they're like, oh, so you ride too. So, oh, well, I've got this horse that's been leaning up against the wall and I can't get it to get off my leg. And it's like, oh, wow. Yeah. It's a shocker you couldn't get it on the trailer. It's like, it's all interconnected, people.
Yeah.
So I love that part about it. And some of my favorite friends and, you know, clients have been people that couldn't get their horse on the trailer. And
Yeah.
it makes for great stories, memories. And then we reminisce about how, oh my gosh, you know, when I met you, I was in tears and I was just a mess because I couldn't get my horse to where I needed to go. And that's how we met. It was like trauma, you know, a trauma intervention or something. It was hilarious. But anyways, trailers do bring up a lot of.
In a way, it's kind of like, it's a testament to those people, right? Because like that's the defining factor. If you're really in a situation like that where you got to call someone to get the horse on the trailer, and then, you know, they see like you come up and kind of peacefully work through getting the horse on the trailer, and the horse is like, okay, now I can get on the trailer and life is good. They're kind of confronted with like a really big tipping point in their horse career.
Absolutely.
They're like, okay, am I going to figure out why this lady could get the horse on the trailer and I couldn't? Or am I just going to am I going to be the person who has trailer loading problems for the rest of my life until I decide to change, you know?
It really is like a pivotal moment, I think, with whatever people call about that. They recognize they're either going to be in on learning how to handle and own their own things that are going on, or they're just going to try to hire somebody to fix the problems for them and recognize they can't do it themselves. And like, you either get the camp that they really are doers and they want to do things themselves. Like, they want to be the woman that can back the trailer and put it in there and not have to call for help. And they want to be able to put their horse on the trailer, and they want to be able to go to the clinics or go to the horse shows or whatever it is. And like, I don't know, I just love those people that sort of figure out that they can do it themselves, even when they don't think they can. And you're like, yes, you can do this, step up. Like, here, you just need to have some simple guidelines of how to do this. But trailer loading really is, I think, the funniest. I mean, it's funny in the moment because you're just like, I relate with you. I get it. You're having a moment and a meltdown, and it's okay. Like, you can do that. You can melt down. But now let's assess what's going wrong that you can't do this, And then it's just like body awareness and all the things. I just love it. But I get it, because I remember being the person who was like sobbing and like, why can't I get my horse on the trailer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
Yeah. It's the worst thing in the world.
It becomes a real point of embarrassment, it seems like, because if you're riding with a bunch of folks and you can't close a gate or something, you assume like half the other people can't close the gate either. Right. So you dink around for 10 minutes and you're like, whatever. None of us are very good at this. But when you're loading your horse on the trailer, you're like, everyone else can do it. Like, even that guy who can't even close the gate, his like goes on by itself. And you feel like you're this failure, and then everybody tends to watch, and then they group around,
like,
and then
God, that guy just got bucked
then you
off
get madder
like 10 times. He can get his
and
horse
his
on the
just
trailer.
goes on by itself.
Why can't I do this?
Yeah.
It's just fascinating.
Yeah.
But you're totally right about like what type of person is going to kind of engage in hiring you, basically. Because as I've started to ride horses for the public more and more, and like being full time at it now, there's like a whole spectrum, obviously, but the two ends of the spectrum are like people that see you as like their diesel mechanic, where they're like, yeah, just fix the problem and then give it back to me. And then there's, on the other side of the spectrum, it's like people who see you as like their life coach. Yeah. And they're like calling you all the time or texting you all the time, like trying to do, which is great. Like, that's not a critique. And, there can be people kind of in between that, but that's kind of the two extremes. And it's honestly, it's hard having to deal with both, because one, you're kind of in a possible situation. Like, I can't teach this horse to babysit you. I don't know. Like, you have to have some level of accountability. And then the other side is, well, now I have to have a real like level of accountability, because this person is putting their faith in me to like guide them on this path to have a better relationship with their horse. So
absolutely. And I've met some people that come into this that have just literally no sense about how to go about any of it. And even in their personal lives, I feel like they're lost, just very lost. And then they start to get a little bit of this, and then they're all in. And like, to me, that is the most exciting thing, because the horses actually have shown them a way to live a different life that's a more quality life. And then I've seen it the other way, obviously, where it's somebody who's just extremely needy. They want help, or they they seem like they want help, and you're giving them all the guidance you can, and you're just you're pouring your heart out to them of all the things they can do to make things better and enjoy, but they actually don't really want it. And you're trying so hard that you're like killing yourself trying to get them to see that things could be better, and they're for whatever reason, they're just not at that point in their life. And I think, now being however old I am, like 43 years old, I see that now, and now I just recognize, like, hey, it's okay. Like, that person's not there yet. That's not your problem. Like, move on. There's a lot of other people over here that actually want some help, and they enjoy it, and they're striving to be better. And I really suck at figuring out which ones are the ones that are really in it, and the ones that I'm like, I don't want to give up on them yet, because maybe they're really going to make it, but they're sucking the life out of me at the same time. And I'm digressing because, it's a hard thing, I think.
Yeah. Well,
so.
That was, I think we talked about that. If we didn't say it on the actual podcast, I think we might have said it when we were like setting up, but it was with our, when we sat down to interview Ricky and talk to Ricky, because I mean, neither of us really knew him before we had him on the podcast, but this is paraphrasing, but basically Ricky said one of the most frustrating things is you can't want it for people, right? Because if you could just have your magic wand to be king of the world, everyone involved with horses would want to be as handy as they could possibly be, right? Reach their full potential and like pursue it with a drive that like the three of us I know sit down and pursue it with. But that's not the case. And then, you go to help someone or ride their horse or whatever, you can't make them want to pursue it with that level of intensity that maybe you have. And that can be really frustrating. I'm sure it's frustrating for everybody, but like I don't know Ricky super well, but I get a sense that he's very similar to me, where we're kind of like type A males. And it's like, and you're probably not dissimilar, where it's like, I just got to like kick their ass in gear, and then they'll like, you got to figure it out. Like you got to try harder. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're just piddling around, not getting anything done, you know? And oh my gosh, like I work on it, try to have kind of a better bedside manner about it. But like in my, like, I guess you'd say my like default disposition, like kind of how I popped out of the womb being, it like hurts my soul to deal with those people sometimes. It's like, why aren't you like just being about like as militant about this as I am? And obviously that's not the case. And I think about that a lot. I go back to like what Ricky said, because I think he made a good point there, is you can't want it for someone.
Yeah.
And it can be frustrating, but you just kind of have to be at peace with that. And like you said, there might be other folks you're working with where they do want it that bad. And that's kind of what inspires you to keep going, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you can see like point A and B, and you could even see a lot of the dots they need to connect. Like when you're trying to help somebody and you're like, hey, I see where you are. I see where you need to go. I see like what you're doing wrong with your hands, what you're thinking. You can see all these things and you still can't. But I'm with you. Like you want to take their hand. You want to like do like this, give them this out of body experience by like you like slipping under their skin and being like, look, I'm going to move your body to, whatever, coil this rope up or whatever the thing you're trying to do, but you can't.
Yeah.
And like all you can do, and it shows me my vulnerability at communication, because I all of a sudden feel helpless. I'm like, people have worked with me and I've studied this and I understand what you're not able to do right now, and I can't help you. Like I really can't. Like I can not like to the extent that I'd love to see you. And so I think like that goes back to like, for me, like what's my business model? Like what do I do? And I don't know how you handle this, Alicia, but I know for me, it's like, hey, I ride horses for people for money, and I love people, and I'm glad to help you. But if it gets to the point where I've been helping your horse and now I got to help you, and like that doesn't happen real quick, real sorry, but I got another horse coming in, and I help horses. But, and that actually contradicts things I probably said in the past where I would put people first, and I still would, except for I put the owner of the horse first. But at this point in my career, I really only can help your horse. I might be able to help you. And all that's going to be is maybe you're around me and I'm really trying to learn from some other people. So if that helps you get steered in the right direction, that's great. And I'm really happy for you. And I can't take any credit for that. But I professionally just work with your horse at a certain level that I've told you that I do. And that's my business model. And I'm trying to run kind of a professional outfit here. So if it gets to the point where I've helped your horse and I can't help you, love you, I got people I can recommend you to, and next horse, please. And that's keeping me sane lately. But because I'm kind of a bleeding heart a little bit, but it just kind of drives me crazy too. And then I know people do surprise you. Like people will come around and you think, gosh, I didn't think that guy had it in him. And I'm one who's come to the conclusion that first impressions are kind of BS. Like I think back over the last 5 years, most of the people that I have met over the past 5 years who are significant in my life, they're a bit different than the first impression. Some are a little similar and they have an incredible depth to what I first saw. And some of those people are the mirror opposite. And they were actually that person when I first met them, but I didn't see that. I judged something else and I didn't get to know them. And it took a while. And so now it's like every person I'm meeting, it's like, who are you? What are you all about? Yeah. And I don't even think into it that much, but I just leave the door open. Yeah. And, but with clients, professionally, I ride your horse. So I'll be polite, cordial, the best, service provider you've ever had, hopefully. And that's where it stops professionally. And I'll try to help you a little bit just by being around you and hopefully being faithful to what I'm learning. But you got to find somebody who's actually practicing working with people right now.
And that's where I'm starting to learn, and I can't say that I'm great at it, but I'm starting to learn to ask the right questions to see if the prospective client is the right fit for me, because I'm not necessarily riding horses. I am riding horses for the public, but it's more on like I might start the colt for a horse for an owner, and then they start riding it eventually. But when I start the colt for the owner, I have to know that it's the right fit for what I can do for them, because I'm not going to start it and then just send it back home with them with no information. They're going to stay on probably taking lessons so they can understand what I'm doing with that colt so that it's a good transfer to them and they end up being long-term clients. But in the beginning, when I was just riding, I was just trying to pay the bills. So it was like whatever was there, I was riding. And then it would get sent home and then I wouldn't talk to them and I wouldn't have, and then I would hear from them months later that it didn't work out or whatever. And that got to be really depressing, because I thought, I tried so hard, I worked so hard with that horse and I got along with it great. But then it went home and then what the heck happened? And then I realized like, oh, I get what happened, because it just, the language they were speaking was like Chinese, whereas I was speaking just a totally different language from what they were speaking. So the poor horse had, it was getting along as good as it could, but it
really didn't have a chance.
It didn't have a chance, and so then you end up being blamed a little bit, but I feel really grateful that majority of the people that I'm around now, which has taken a lot of years, right? Like 23 years to get the people that they're like, hey, we want to show up and watch you ride that horse. And then we want to know what to do next. And like, that's super exciting for me to be around people like that take ownership in it. And then they're like, maybe I could go ride it in, this particular clinic or that, or how can I set this up so I can take it somewhere new and I can learn how to make it feel as good as you were making it feel. And, that's super exciting for me. And then trying to put people in connections with like, well, if I can't do it for you, then this person can help you maybe. And just making it a success for that horse and for that rider. So.
Have you sold many horses?
I have not sold very many horses, but I'll tell you, the very first horse that I bought in partnership with someone else, it was a warm blood that I really loved, and I bought that horse in partnership, half and half, and then I worked many years and I bought out the other part of it because I loved that horse so much, and I rode it, and I was riding it in a Ray Hunt clinic, and somebody had come up to me and offered me money on it. And it was right when I was about to be married and I wanted to help pay for my wedding. So I said, I'd consider selling this horse. And I did. And it was a great thing because it was like, oh, this is a business finally. Like, cool, but it was also like that emotional side where you're like, oh my God, I love this horse. How could I do this? And of course, I'm a typical, horse lover woman that sobbed her eyes out, but sent the horse down the road. And he had a great life. He was with that new owner for like, I don't know, 12 years. And then she called me up one day and said, unfortunately, I'm going through a divorce. I cannot keep this horse. Do you want him back? I'm like, yeah. So we met at an exit on some road, and off he came off her trailer and onto mine, and I had him back in my life, and he's still with me. He's 26 years old this year. And
oh wow.
So
That's
was
cool.
It was a cool thing because I started the horse. I loved the horse. I rode him. I showed him. I earned some things through the USDF on him, riding dressage, and then I'd ranch rope with him on the weekend, and I was very new to all that, so I didn't know what I was doing, and he was terrified of cattle. So it was like a tricaner that was like, oh my God, and so I learned a lot from him. But he's still in my life, and so that's really cool. And then a couple horses that I got for $1 because nobody wanted to ride them, and they were difficult, and I learned from them, and they were like the best teachers ever because nobody wanted them. And the great thing is that all those horses that I never thought would be in my life, and I never thought that I would sell them, they are still in my life. Like, they've never gone away. And I know where all of them are located, and the people still keep in touch with me. And Nick, who's here this weekend riding, he bought Junior from me. And so that's fun to see him learning and asking the right questions, and like, hey, when he got all jacked up today, like, what am I doing wrong? And, just having conversations like that I think I understand where he's coming from. He's thinking, I don't want to mess up this horse. And I'm thinking, you're not messing him up. You're learning a process, and you're learning a new language. And, Nick is not me. And, you just can't.
You're very kind, Alicia.
The
way you said that to him.
It's just, you can't.
Nick, you're screwing him up.
Yeah. Like,
you're lowering him down to the Nick Hoffman level.
I was like, Nick, don't get so down on yourself.
That's how we'll get him to listen to this episode. We'll say, Nick, we talked about you. We mentioned your name.
Yeah.
Go to minute, whatever, 35 or whatever this is.
He'll be intrigued, I'm sure.
I know. But you know what was the best part of my day today is watching him have like a bit of a shit show this morning, and like not understanding. He's like, I just don't understand what I was doing wrong. And like, we just talked about it while eating lunch. And he's like, what should I do about it? I'm like, well, we'll probably go out again this afternoon, and then you get to work on it again. And people like that put into practice what you actually had a conversation about and make a change for the better. How awesome is that? Like, to me, that's what it's all about. And seeing the joy on his face when he was like, oh, okay, that's not as bad as I thought it was. Like, because he was really ready to like take him knitting at about 11:30 a.m. But then come like 4:30, he was like, oh, that's not so bad. So,
well, and I'm completely joking about Nick because man, that guy, like today, he was getting in the zone.
Oh, yeah.
And he was like locking on one shot at a time, and then he'd practice it and get it figured out. And he's got a great mindset. The first time they came down and visited for a weekend, we went out, and it was during calving season. And there was this calf that needed to get tagged. And Nick's riding Doc. He's got this rope on the saddle, and I don't even know if it was like an actual rope. It was like some old rope we gave him. You know, we always give somebody a rope and like a night latch on the saddle, but like we don't really think about them roping. We get out there, he's like, "Hey, can I rope that thing?" And we're like, "Yeah, you can rope that calf and tag it." Sure enough, he catches it and the rope's all over. So I get on the ground, and I remember barking at him a few times, and I had no idea who he was or that he did the TV show or anything. I just thought it was some guy that was visiting Bill. And I'm like, all I know is you're about to get in a wreck, so I'm going to yell at you for a little bit. And a lot of times, like, guys' response to that is they're like, yeah, I know. But he was like, so like, yep, okay, what do I need to do? Like, he was on the ball. Like, any criticism was like a compliment to him. It was like, that's great. You're criticizing me, so I can not do that again. And even today during the roping clinic, like, he just took any criticism, and it's like, okay, well, I won't do that again. Great, now I'm better. Like, it's fun watching him. So props to Nick. Definitely not getting on him, but that's cool that you can sell a horse to a friend too.
Yeah.
And great guy to get your horse, but you can kind of keep an eye on him and help him out.
Absolutely. And it pretty much anymore, going back to your question about selling horses, I mean, anymore it's like, if it's something I know and it's something I've been around, it brings more joy to me. A lot like podcast numbers. It's not so much about how much did you sell that horse for. It's more like, you know, you sell the horse and you want to do that, but then what's this person going to do with that horse afterwards? And is it going to continue to bring that person joy in their life? And if it's not bringing them joy in their life, well, then maybe that's an opportunity for growth and like helping them understand, you know, things they could do just a little bit different. Because until we know what we're doing or not doing, it might be a miserable situation or it could be really awesome and it could really help you in other areas of your life. So I think we're blessed to have horses help us with, you know, making us better people for sure.
Yeah. Well, like, to follow that up a little bit more, like, have you thought about, because now we're getting into, you know, like small business, horse industry stuff. If you were going to be somebody who made a big part of their business, you know, riding horses, getting them pretty handy, and then like turning out and selling like 3 or 4, maybe 5 horses a year. Like, it sounds like that's not something you've tried to do necessarily. And like, you have a real connection with horses when you work with the horse, and like, that has a lot of meaning to you. And have you thought about like that type of a business model though? And if you were to do it like that, you would have to change your approach and change who you are a little bit and be like, well, if I did get into selling horses, I would have to, I'd have to just kind of not care as much, or I'd have to kind of do a little bit of planning ahead of time and like get certain kinds of horses that I knew could kind of put up with being just ragdolls a bit, to where like that was my product. And then now I'm like, I love these horses, but like those ones I'm selling, and at the end of the day, I can't pick the owners. So, oh well, I'm going to do the best I can while I have them. Have you thought about like what would go into that if you decided to sell horses as part of a business model?
I really hadn't thought of it up until the last couple of months. And I honestly can say that I have more joy in teaching and helping people than I do selling horses, for sure. And I think that I'm such a horrible salesperson in the fact that you probably do want to buy a horse from me, because I will literally sell it to you for $1 if I know that it's going to have like a great life and I'm going to be somehow involved in it. And I actually told the vet that like I was having a horse x-rayed that I was selling. And I told him, I said, I need you to x-ray this horse. Like, I was doing the pre-purchase exam on my own horse because I didn't feel right advertising the horse until I knew what was going on in certain parts of its body, because I know the horse so well and I know where it's inadequate. And I'm like, I need to know, like, what are the hocks like? And what is this part of the body like? Purely for a baseline too, because I do believe that it's good to have a baseline on certain joints of the horse that could potentially be a problem with its conformation. So I did my own pre-purchase on the horse for the person buying it. And I was like, okay, the hocks look like this. And I said to the vet, I was like, okay, I am looking at you right now. I need to tell you, should I sell this horse for $1 or could I actually ask for money for this horse? Because I'm just that person that I just want to know that what I'm doing is the right thing. And he just laughed at me and he was like, if you want to sell it for $1, you can sell it to me for $1. He's like, because the hocks are fine and you should sell it for, some money. So
Right. What it's worth.
Going back to what your question is, I am a horrible business person in that aspect, that making money on horses has never been the end goal. For me, if it's the right fit and the person likes the horse that much and they offer me money for it and I'm like, okay, I can part with the horse for that, then I'll sell it. But I'm actually, I think, more into the relationship long term than I am the short term. And I don't know that I could like turn out, 5 horses a year or whatever, because I invest so much time in the horse that I'm riding. And then I have such a connection with the horse that then I'm just like, if I were independently wealthy, I would just own so many horses, it would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
So maybe circle back in a couple of years and I might be like turning out like 10 or 12 horses a year. I don't know. But because things change, right? You never know where life's going to take you.
I kind of have that going on right now. Like, I've got horses that I own that, like, for example, I've got one horse that I own that I'm like, that one's, I mean, she's going to die here. Like, she's going to be here.
Oh, I thought you meant that in a bad way.
No.
Like, one of these days, I'm going to come out with my 38.
I'm just going to take her out.
I've had those thoughts
now I
too.
feel where you're coming from.
I've had those thoughts too. But no, hopefully in like a decade or two, like that horse will live out the end of its days here. That's kind of my thinking. And then I've got a couple other horses that I own that, like, I got because of, I mean, like you said, you end up with horses. Like, if you work in the industry and you're training, people give you horses. And I've got a couple of those too. And it's
don't take the horse.
Yeah.
Usually it's $1, but it ends up being.
Yeah. Well, so like, for example, I mean, Ben knows the paint mare.
I just took a horse the other day.
Yeah. The paint mare.
How's that going for you?
For just $1. It's going good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
But anyway.
That's my buddy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why Joe's mounted this weekend.
Yeah.
I did it all for him.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know if I want that horse. And then Joe's like, do you have something I can ride that clinic weekend? And I was like, I will. I'll have something for you.
Yeah.
Got to drive to Chattanooga.
That's what our relationship.
That's friendship.
is like.
That's funny.
I got you your very own dink.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
Does he have to take it home too once Sunday rolls around? Does he have to like take it with him?
Well, if they've created a good bond together,
Yeah.
and they shouldn't be separated,
it's meant to be.
then
I'm gonna
it's
teach him
meant
to
to
load
be.
in the back of my Avalon.
Hey, life happens, and when it comes calling, you've got to show up. And if that's your spirit animal, he's going home with you.
You're meant to also buy a 2-horse bumper pull trailer so you can take it home with you.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, one of the horses that I do have that's like that, in all seriousness, that paint mare I rode all last fall.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, you wouldn't necessarily like, she's not lighting up the world, but she's a cute little horse, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you got horses like that. And honestly, like with that one's a good example. Just like kind of like a horse meant for the kill pen, a grade 4-year-old, I ended up getting the horse. So I was like, well, I'm gonna ride her for however much time and then sell her, and she's gonna kind of be like fill in the gaps between personal horses, because I got a young one coming up, and then like by the time she's ready to really get going, that one will be gone. And I found that like I was starting her, but I wasn't starting her with like the same passion, if that makes sense. Like I was starting her and I was like, oh man, like any little problem, because there are a couple horses like you start them and it's just like it looks like a DVD, right? It's like, wow, that everything went exactly as planned and it's like perfect, right? That there are horses like that once in a blue moon. But when you have it in your mind that you're going to sell a horse, that's almost, at least for me, that it almost became the expectation. Like, look, I'm going to start you like I start every other colt. I'm going to ride you for a while, get you gentle, and then I'm going to sell you.
For a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, heck yeah. And I mean, especially with her, it's like paint, flashy. Like we're rolling in it already. I'm thinking about what I'm going to buy with you. And like, not really, but if you have that attitude, any little like hurdle you come across, you look at the horse and you're like, you're such a
argumentative, right?
Yeah, you're
like
such an
like, I'm going to cut that out of you.
You are really screwing with my business plan right now to sell you down the road later, because I'm going to have to take the extra how much ever time to fix this little quirk you have. And honestly, like that mare, she was like super head shy. I mean, someone at some point like beat the Jesus out of that mare, and like you could do pretty much anything with her, but like freaking bridle her. Like you could get on. Like this is how bad it was. I was like riding her, like in a halter, like guiding her with my legs. And it'd still be a knockdown drag out the bridle of that horse, because I was like just doing everything in the book, but like really addressing the issue for a while. And so like I finally took it. I was like, maybe I've kind of just like, I've kind of painted myself into a corner. I don't know how long I'm going to have this horse anymore. So I need to just accept that this is like one of my horses and like approach it like that. And as soon as I started approaching it like that, things changed, because I didn't have like this agenda for this horse to go forward with. And, I'm kind of like Ben. I'm of the opinion, if you're really going to be to like good at this on some level, you're some kind of bleeding heart on the inside, where it's like, yeah, I mean, I love all of them. I love all of them a ton. And so you like, as soon as I said, okay, this is my mare and I'm just going to like, I'm going to work with her and just work on a little progress. Things got better. And I mean, I might still sell her one day. Like, honestly, I'd keep her. The biggest factor is like we talked about today. Like I'm 6'3" and she's like a 15-hand mare. So it's just like, in terms of something I'm going to keep for the rest of its life.
Right.
It's just like physically not a horse that fits me or that I feel like fits me, but I'm going to have her. Like I've got plans for her. I'm going to like, I'm going to bust her out this spring and probably use her like to work our bull sale and like play the polo cross season on her. So like, I know I'm going to keep her for at least the next year or so. And ever since I had that attitude, like it's just been a lot more pleasant, because it's like, hey, we're just partners and we're doing our stuff. But maybe there's other people out there who can compartmentalize better than me. But that's I've had her and I've had another horse that like okay, I'm just gonna get them broke enough to where I can sell them and go to the next one, and it never ever works out. Because when you have it, for me personally, when I had that attitude, it just, I got too angry.
Yeah.
Whereas,
Same.
you know, some other horses where I know, like, you know, this is my horse. I'm going to just pour what I'm going to do whatever's necessary. I'm going to spend whatever time is necessary and, you know, do as many reps as necessary to like get them comfortable and feeling good about themselves. When you kind of have that attitude, I mean, it's like you can go forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as opposed to when you have the fuse, like, no, do it this way. No, do it this way. No, like, okay, well, now you're behind schedule, so we've got a problem.
Right.
So that was a hard learned lesson for me. And again, maybe someone else out there has the discipline that they can approach it like, we got all the time in the world, and then they leave the barn and they're still thinking about selling that horse, but I can't do it.
Well, and I do really think it's all a quality of life sort of thing. And, you know, you see those. I have a client that's been looking for a horse, and we've been looking for quite a while and just haven't found. And every once in a while, something will pop up, and I'm like, hey, you should go maybe check out this one. And it wasn't like I know the person, you should go check out the horse. It's more like, this potentially could be something, so why don't you go check it out? And I mean, she went and looked at this horse, and thank God we talked like 2 weeks later, because I said, did you go check out the horse? And she's like, yeah. And she had forgotten that I didn't know the people. And she said, do you know those people? And I was like, no, I don't know those people. I just sent it to you because I thought it looked like an all right horse. And she went, and it was a great learning opportunity for her, because, I mean, her first drive down the driveway wasn't great. She pulls in and opens her door, and there's beer cans everywhere. So that was the first red flag. And then multiple other red flags occurred. And thank God she didn't stay long, and she was like, this isn't going to work for me. But, you know, to me, that's just, it's sad, but that's kind of the norm, I think, with a lot of, you know, backyard. I don't want to call it backyard, because we did backyard stuff, but we weren't like beer drinking and trying to sell horses that were unsafe. But it's just sad that there's some of that out there, you know, and you have to watch out.
There's a lot of that out there.
There's quite a lot of it. And I think when you have good intentions and you're trying to make safe horses, and you're, you know, you want to hook them up with the right people that are going to do good by them. And it really does tug at your heartstrings after a while, because you pour so much into them, and you want to make sure, like, mentally they're good, physically they're good, like all the things are lining up so this horse can have like a good life. And unfortunately, there's quite a lot of people out there that don't necessarily line up with the same, you know, agenda. And I think that's, for me, why horse sales have never been a great, like, enticing thing for me, because I'm like, I don't know, like, I just feel weird about the whole thing. And
Yeah,
maybe something will change.
I gotta tell this story too. This is a great, like, horse selling story. So, this was like when I first kind of got around the buck Branham and stuff, and well, I was riding Betty. You know Betty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Off the
Your
track
thoroughbred.
mare. Yeah, the thoroughbred. So I was like getting her ready to go to Lexington, Kentucky for like the thoroughbred show deal. And I wanted to get her around cattle, but I was at a boarding barn. I wasn't like at our place. So I was like, well, how am I going to get her around cattle? And I didn't know anything. Like I'd been to a buck clinic, and I'd hung out with Bill a couple times, and like I was super, super, super green. Didn't realize I was super, super, super green, but I didn't have a whole lot going on besides the fact that I could like hang on. I was a good hanger on her. And so I went to this cow working clinic that was like, 30 minutes down the road or whatever. And it's just this local guy clinician. And it was fine. Like I like, as he did the deal, I could kind of tell like, oh, this guy doesn't 100% know what he's talking about. And I knew enough to be like, that Buck Brannaman guy I saw a couple months ago, he seemed way more aware than this guy, and like could really articulate what was going on. And this guy, he says one thing and then he does another. And so I think that's like, he doesn't really know what's happening. So, and that was fine. but they were hosting the clinic at this like arena, and it was like a kind of like a reining like performance horse barn that had an arena that they like rented out for clinics and stuff. And so at the end there, we were like all talking. I was like myself, the local clinician, and the guy who owned the arena, who like participated in like this afternoon part of the clinic, and was like riding this like reining horse that, you know, typical like zip over here, all that stuff. And at the time I was like, man, that horse is really flying around doing some stuff. And so I was talking to that guy, and you know, just telling him what I was doing. I was like, oh, well, you know, I've got this like thoroughbred show to take this mare to. And then I don't know what I'm going to do with her. Like I might sell her, like if there's interest, but I haven't sold a lot of horses. So, And the guy who like owned the place and like ran this like reining training barn out of that place, he's like, you want my advice? It's like, sure. He's like, you find someone who doesn't know what the hell they're doing and sell the horse to them. And I was like, huh, really? And he's like, yeah, that way they don't get along with the horse, and you can buy it back for like half price. And I was like, that's something you do? And he's like, hell yeah. And he points straight down, like he's sitting up, we're all sitting on our horse. He points straight down. He's like, I've sold this horse 3 times.
No. Oh my God.
And I was dumbfounded. He was like, hell yeah, I sold this horse 3 times.
Oh,
and they just
so sad.
Ain't nobody get along with him.
And he was like proud of that.
Oh yeah. He was like, ain't nobody can get along with this horse. Like they don't know what they're doing. They always call me back a couple months later.
Oh my gosh.
I buy him back for like half price, you know, because they ruined him, and then I tune him back up and sell him again.
What a moron.
Isn't that awful?
And like, I don't know. Maybe I don't have like the best response to that stuff. I think I'm one of those people who's like, you might as well laugh if you have a choice between laughing or crying. Because just like the sheer confidence he had, he was like, yeah, no, it's a great, he's like, I do it right here.
I'm with you. I mean, I'm the kind of guy, I would chuckle, but lately I've been losing my filter more to the point where it would just be like, I don't know what I'd say. It wouldn't be very nice.
Well, obviously, that was the last time I went back to that place. Last time I dealt with that clinician and stuff. But I was,
oh man.
I mean, I was just dumbfounded. I was like, man,
wow.
And you know, obviously, I went home and I was like, well, I'm definitely not going to do that. So maybe I should find some different mentors and some different peers to be around.
Yeah, and it's also unbelievable, but at the same time, the stories that I've heard from people that are looking for horses and trying to find the right match and trying to help people find the right match, it makes sense why a lot of people, so I think there's like a big group of people that don't intend to sell somebody the wrong horse, but they've ridden the horse and they've done X, Y, and Z, and they send the horse on to the next person, but that next person doesn't know how to keep the same type of format in the life,
so,
you know. But then there's these idiots that are like that they intentionally, they just really don't give a rip, you know. And,
and that, so I don't mean to interrupt you, but that's a really good point.
Yeah,
like it's really easy to like sell someone a horse that doesn't work out.
Yeah.
And have all the best intentions still. Mm-hmm. Like that's something that's very easy to do.
Yes.
Because you just, you know, don't have the experience, or maybe you're handier than you think you are. And you're like, yeah, well, I get along with them great and blah, blah, blah. Or you overestimate, or not even overestimate. It's like you assume what they know. So that's a really good point. Like, you know, there's predators out there, like the guy I just talked about.
Yeah, total predator.
But there's a lot of people out there who like genuinely want the best for the horse. And it's more like a lack of education, awareness, whatever you want to call it.
I mean, down to like how much you're feeding it, how much you're using it, how much you're making it feel good about what it's doing and making sense to it. And a lot of the connections that I see that don't work, it's because they take the horse on, they maybe feed it slightly different, don't use it as much, and then they're trying to emulate what you're doing, but they're not at all. And they're maybe doing it like once a week instead of 4 to 5 times a week. And then they're wondering why it's not working.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you have to understand that if I send my child to school 5 days a week, but then all of a sudden I'm like, you're not going to go to school 5 days a week. You're going to go 1 day a week. I'm going to pump you full of sugar and I'm not going to exercise you. I'm going to crate you. And now you're a problem child. And are you actually a problem child, or are you just in such a bad living condition that is set up for failure that I never intended to sell you a horse that wasn't the right horse? It's just that your living conditions are so different than what it had been living in and doing. And now the seller is made to be the bad guy. So like, to me, it's really fascinating because there are actual legitimate people who are horrible horse salespeople. Then there's extremely honest horse salespeople that tell you all this stuff. And then the horse gets put in the new life and they don't get worked at all. They get fed a lot. They sit around all the time. They're just only with their herd and they never get taken out and doing the things that they should be doing. And so it's tricky because you can either be a really honest horse salesperson and tell them this is what I do, and then the horse doesn't get that life, and then they actually do digress quite a bit. And but at least then you're honest, you know, and you say,
Yeah.
like, this is what I do. Whether you choose to do it or not is your deal. So, you know, that's on you. But it's tricky.
Well, like, and if you sell a horse, any horse that I've sold, I've only sold a couple, but I had they signed something that said this is a all sales are final.
Yeah.
And I meant that. And I've actually had one person come back and say, hey, would you buy him back? And I was like, no. Because I was like, if I start down that road,
yeah,
what am I going to do? Just buy back every horse that doesn't work out?
Right.
And everyone might feel different about that, but that was my calculated decision, was like, I can't just do that, because then do I do it next time and then the time after that?
And also when things get a little bit tough for people,
yeah,
I think that's when you really need to dig deep and be like, okay, am I going to try to figure out what I'm doing and adapt, or am I going to become a victim and then blame the person that sold the horse to me? I mean,
yeah, it's exactly like the trailer loading thing we were talking about.
Well, because they blame, but then people like us that are kind of bleeding hearts, we can have a problem where we make other people's problem our problem.
Exactly.
And that's a responsibility that is not yours until you take it on.
I did that for a lot of years.
I am culpable in that. A lot.
Amen. Clip that.
Yeah.
That's going on the Instagram.
Oh yeah.
That is 100% the problem.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is you can, I do it all the time, and I have people tell me I'm doing it all the time. People come to me with a problem, and I assume because they're coming to me with the problem, it is now my problem.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be an asshole, but also kind of like you said,
People
you gotta
have to take accountability.
Yeah, exactly.
They need accountability for what they're doing.
Yeah.
And like a lot of times I think people watch Yellowstone or whatever, some of these shows that are, they're great entertainment, but then they're like, I want to do this horse stuff. And then they don't understand that, like, in order to do this, to really do this, it's not just sort of like I'm going to do it here and I'm going to do it there. Like, no, you need to like do it if you're going to do it. Yeah. And it's not my problem if you aren't willing to step up and do the things that you need to do.
Yeah.
And take accountability and make the right moves and it's work, people. It takes a lot of work. And
you can't do it for every person that comes along.
And the more I've recognized that when I surround myself with people who actually want to do the work and they actually enjoy the process, how much more rewarding life is. Because there were a lot of years where I was at a place that I felt like the balloon man, on what was that funny movie where he's like, make me a balloon,
Joe Biden?
No. whoever's listening to this will be like, I know the name of that movie.
Wait.
But anyway,
Make Me a Balloon?
yeah, he's
When you said Balloon Man, I thought you meant Up. That's what I was thinking about.
no, that is a depressing ass
Balloon
movie.
Man.
Yeah.
So is there a balloon man
Is it
in
like-
the movie?
You're not talking
Yeah,
about Bubble Boy.
It's not Adam Sandler, but it's
Is Bubble Boy different than Balloon
Don't-
Man?
never play charades with me because you will hate it. It's your worst nightmare. But anyways,
It's just in this cultural, lately, if you say balloon man,
is it? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
There's another
Oh,
movie. I'm
yeah.
gonna come up with it, and then I'll let y'all know.
no.
I don't even know where I was going with any of this. Could you pour me a
Keep
little
going.
bit of
I'm
that
gonna-
wine?
Absolutely.
We're gonna follow up on Balloon Man. Is that Googleable?
It probably is.
All right, Balloon Man.
What's the guy's name with? He's like,
So literally, I'm typing balloon. It's like balloon shot down over
no,
Alaska.
wrong balloon.
Joe Biden on the balloon. It's like
No,
that's
oh.
why.
Oh, now this search is going to be totally
I know.
screwed from that whole
Balloon Man.
ordeal.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to find it.
So what was the deal
Robin
with the Balloon
Hitchcock
Man?
and the Egyptians.
Oh,
There's
No.
a YouTube clip here
Why did he
called
wanna
"I Was Walking
become
Up
a balloon?
6th Avenue." Oh, it's a song by Robin Hitchcock. I was walking up 6th Avenue when Balloon Man came right up to me. He was round and fat and spherical with the biggest grin I'd ever seen.
it's Wedding Crashers, I think.
Okay.
Hold on, I've pulled it up. Thank God for YouTube. Yeah. Here we go.
All right. Who else wants something?
Hey, play it like in little clips, or I'll just talk over it. But you got to let it go like 5-10 seconds and then say something, so it
Oh.
breaks up
Okay.
YouTube's algorithm,
Oh shoot.
like police.
It's Wedding Crashers though.
Okay. Because
It's
like you can play little snippets of stuff, but if it's over 4 or 5 seconds, when we put this on YouTube, they run through it and they will pick like, I mean, if somebody's ringer goes off, it'll say copyrighted content spotted, Sprint mobile, double beep ring, and then it'll tell you like this content is fine, but it still finds it. I mean, it'll find the most minute sound in the entire podcast.
that's
So
impressive.
same with stuff like that. You can play like little snippets, but it's got to be fast.
Ah.
Yeah.
Well, heck, I don't even know where I was going with the Balloon Man thing, but anywho, I found it. It's Wedding Crashers for anybody who's listening and needs to know.
For anyone still listening, holy
They
cow.
probably.
Where was she going with the Balloon Man
I
thing?
don't even
Okay.
remember.
Something about selling horses.
That's right.
And you got to be accountable.
Yes,
That's
What's
it's
really
true.
bad is that
You need-
people listening to this know where you were going
Oh
with the
my
Balloon
God.
Man.
I'm gonna re-listen it to it and go, oh crap, I was actually onto
Was-
something really
Well, the poor folks listening to this are not sipping on
good.
$50 wine.
Wait,
That's true.
yeah, have you tried the wine?
And
No,
we
I
got to
haven't.
show this.
I haven't.
folks.
Oh, it's
Look at
called
that, everybody.
Ride. Oh my gosh.
That is the stuff. Looks like Dale Brisby on the horse there.
Oh, dude, just
Oh,
lay
look
it
at
into
that.
him.
Yeah, it's empty. Anyway,
Oh.
it's very good.
I'm just not gonna be able to sleep tonight because I'm gonna be wondering what we were talking about. It was something really good. I was on to something good,
Yeah,
guys. But
I'm telling
know,
you, it's
it's okay.
Balloon Man and accountability, but
accountability.
we're having
we'll
fun.
never know.
Make me a balloon man.
Nah.
I don't know. Hell.
One question I had for you, because we're getting
Oh,
close to
geez.
the end.
Yeah, we
But I
gotta
wanted to
move
ask
on.
you, because you mentioned something about being at a Ray Hunt clinic. Now, I don't want to like get way into that, but I wanted to ask you, like, so you met Ray?
I
Or,
did.
or was
I
around him
felt
at least?
so lucky to and I'll try to make this quick, but it's a funny story.
Oh,
Yeah,
I-
don't cheapen Ray.
no, we got all
No,
the time.
not
But
Ray.
make
I'm
it
not
quick.
cheaping Ray, but like I was talking to
Badass.
Buck. I was talking to Buck and I said, okay, I work for this, at the time, this great guy who was always willing to help in the education department. And that was the whole reason why I worked there. Like, I didn't care how much money I made. I just wanted to learn. So whatever I had to do, like, that's what I was there for. So he said, whoever you want to bring in and whatever you want, like, just lay it out there during the year. We'll talk about it and fit it in. So I came up with my list of people I wanted to learn from. Of course, Buck was on there because I knew him. And then there were other, there were some dressage mentors and Marielle Barnett and Colonel Albrecht von Ziegner from Germany, who's a 3-day eventing coach over there at the time. And I mean, I just had this great list of people that I was learning from. And so I said to Buck, I have a little bit of, an additional education fund. And I was thinking about going and learning from this person. And I won't name the name, but he just looked at me and he didn't say anything. And Marielle, who I'd been learning from, was a lot the same. She was very wise. And when I would ask her something, if it was something that wasn't going to be to my benefit, she just usually wouldn't answer the question. So he just looked at me and just nodded and had this like smile on his face. And I was like, huh. And so I sat there and processed it for a minute. And I was like, well, I guess I shouldn't go learn from that person. And then I looked at him and I thought of a follow-up question. And I was like, well, if I was going to go learn from someone other than you, who would it be? And he said, Ray Hunt. And I thought, oh, okay. So I researched it and found out that it just so happened that he was going to be just around the bay of Little Traverse Bay, which was 30 minutes away from where I was working. And he was going to be doing a colt starting clinic and a horsemanship. And so immediately I called and signed up, and I was like, is there any room I want to? And they were like, yeah, sure. So I got on there and I went, and there were only 3 people in the colt starting. No one would sign up for it for whatever reason, because what I heard was that people were afraid to ride in it. And I was like, well, geez, I mean, how bad can it be? It's a round pen. Like, I'm all in.
We've seen the videos.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know any of this at the
and
time.
Neither of us like knew or met Ray Hunt, but like even the people we've talked to on the podcast, they're like, yeah, there was a reputation for people getting hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Ray
I mean,
Hunt
I witnessed,
clinics.
so that gray horse I was telling you guys about that I bought and rode for a couple of years, and I took him there, and I rode in the colt starting in the morning, and then I rode that Tricaner in the afternoon. And that's how I sold him, was in that clinic, because he said, hey, he pointed the horse out in the crowd, and he said, will you just trot that horse around? Because his expression was always so good. And he was just a really loose, free moving, happy horse. And that really wasn't me. That was just who the horse was. And so I sold him at that clinic, but I rode in the morning, and it was just the best experience, because Ray was teaching. He wasn't riding at that particular clinic in the colt start. And he just, I was on a Norwegian fjord. Shane Wilcox, who bred Marlin, who's the bridle horse that Riv's riding. Shane Wilcox rode an off the track thoroughbred, and my friend Jackie Balzer was riding Pasifino. So, I mean, it was like it
was eclectic.
Eclectic group. And we're riding in the round, and he flagged us around a little bit. I mean, we didn't ride these things for more than like 30 minutes. And he was like, you guys look good. And he opened the round pen panel, and Shane almost got decapitated like 5 times because this horse was so tall. And in and out of the round pen we went, and we were fine. And I swear to God to you, we weren't even in a bridle. We were in rope halters, from what I gather. And he told us to go out for a ride down the trails. Well, neither one of us lived at that farm, so we didn't know the trails. And he just said, I'll just see you when you get back. And we're like, really? Okay, well, if Ray believes in us, we believe in us. So off we went. And we actually had one of the best rides. And it was a lot of fun. But so Ray went up there every summer for, I guess, a couple of years. And I just happened to get in on 2 of them before he was done.
That's awesome.
Doing what he was doing. It was a lot of fun. It was. But I did watch one girl get just lawn darted into a beam.
Don't you love that expression? Lawn darted.
The worst expression.
I mean, the trajectory she just really went for a.
I'm like, when we say lawn dart, your head is leading, right?
Yeah, head is
that
leading.
correct? Yeah.
But then it wasn't like a total dart, like downward. It was sort of an arc to it. And she.
Like a badminton birdie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then do a little bit of.
Yeah. like there was a little wobbling, and then she landed. And
So you don't necessarily have to hit your head.
No,
but
she did. She was alert when she stood up, and I just remember Ray was like, "Well, time to get back on,"
Yeah.
and she just. And I was like, how is she not getting life flighted to the...
Yeah.
It looked really rough to me, but she got back on and off she went. And I do remember Jayton Lord being there. It was up in Harbor Springs, Michigan. And I remember meeting him then and watching him ride and just kind of riding behind him, and kind of learning from what he was doing. And so It was fun. Yeah. And I'm glad I took Buck up on his advice and didn't go with the other, dude that I was thinking about going to learn from. But.
So out of all that experience, is there one little tidbit that you got from Ray in person that stuck with you? If you could kind of narrow it down to that.
Yeah, I know the biggest thing that I got from that weekend that was everlasting in my mind was just watching the movements that he made on his horse while he was teaching the rest of everybody else, and how intentional everything was that he was doing, and realizing that there was a whole nother level to the awareness that I could be doing when I'm sitting on a horse and having a conversation with someone else or being with a group of people, and how much multitasking that takes and how much experience that takes. Because at that point in his life, I mean, he was kind of nearing the end because he was on oxygen then, and there was one point he was riding, but then when he was in the golf cart, he didn't ride the whole day. But when he was on the horse, like, just how fitting it was that he was on the horse and not in the best health, but probably at the top of his game and doing so little to do what he was doing was effortless to him. But for the rest of us, it took so much thought, and we were struggling and like, God dang, why does he make it look so easy? Like, he's nearing the end of his life, but it's like effortless for him to be horseback. And for the rest of us, we were just struggling. So
that's crazy.
Yeah. I really loved those times. That was fun.
Wow.
And his humor. I mean, he was funny, even though he was, he was all about the horse and not a whole lot about the human, and we all lived through it somehow, but
we all lived. Everyone survived Ray Hunt.
Yeah.
We did.
Oh, that's a funny way to put it.
Yeah. I was just disappointed that there weren't more people in the cult starting, but at the same time, I was like, this is sweet. Like, we're all getting pretty much our own private clinic here, Nobody else wanted to do it. And and I was on a Norwegian fjord, so I was like on a moving couch. So
yeah. You were like, come what may. Let's do this.
Sounds like you came prepared to a Ray Hunt colt starting.
Yeah. I was like, give me the easiest ride.
Yeah.
I'm all in.
That's fun.
That is a great story.
Yeah, everyone's punchy and forking when you're starting fjords.
Yeah.
Like, do whatever, just slap a saddle on, I'll go.
I mean, that thing rode off like it had been ridden its entire life. I was like, God, this is the easiest day. Poor Jackie, she's got this jacked up, Pasofino, and then Shane was, he was about ready to die on whatever he was riding, that thoroughbred. And so, I mean, I was having a great time, but I'm sure it was a little different experience for those two.
Well, and like Ben said, we're about ready to wrap up, but I would imagine the Pasofino, like, this will be an excuse to get you on again, because you and I have had some really good conversations about gated horses.
Yes.
And dealing with them. But like, starting gated horses, it's not like, yeah, you're probably going to stay on, but just like, don't roll off either side. Like, I don't know about you, but I have way more concern about, like, I just hope this saddle doesn't like flip on me or something while this thing is like zooming around. It's not going to like be up and down, but it's going to be like here.
Yeah. Well, my experiences may be quite different than yours. Like, the two near-death experiences that I've had horseback have been on walkers.
Oh, really?
So
But were they bucking?
No, they were not bucking.
Okay.
They've never been.
No,
extremely.
they can get you in a bind though.
Yeah, they can.
Yeah.
I mean, the one time I was just making up things because I just needed jobs to do, but I didn't really actually have a job because the entire farm had like a great staff of people. So I was like, well, today I'm going to pretend I need to fix the fence. So I rode out towards the road and was coming around, and the fences were pristine, but I needed a job. So I was doing that. And somebody had decided to blow out the sprinklers that day. And this particular horse was the hardest horse. And to this day, I'm pretty sure he's not great about tarps. Like, and any other horse I had ever been around had been fine about carrying a tarp. We could pass tarps, blah, blah, blah. But when the sprinklers came up and they blew the air out of those, I took the fastest ride of my life from the very back of that field almost all the way home. And I couldn't bend it because it was so scared. And I had whiplash for days, and that was on a walker. And that thing was so scared. And, you know, I'm sure maybe if I knew what I know now, I could have remedied the situation, but it was bad. And I recovered from the whiplash. Obviously, it was fine. But I was like, wow, that was really, really fast. And then the other time, the other near-death experience on a walker was just trying to lope it around, and it wasn't the most physically, you know, put together thing. And it just did like an endo, and we somersaulted.
My biggest fear.
Yeah, because some of them are just not very handy.
On any horses that aren't very stable.
Yeah. Because you want to just like give them the reins and be like, hey, you know, but you're like, Jesus, take the wheel. Like,
how about the reins?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Like I said, that's my biggest fear is a horse. Just like we're moving out and the horse trips and endos on me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I've army crawled out of a few of them and
I've had it. I've had a 17-3 warm blood. We were coming out of a bending line, and he changed leads. Like I asked for the lead change, and we went to go right, and then he like went back left. Like we were on the right lead, but then he went left, and his front feet got crossed and he endoed, and I hit on the ground. Luckily he was so big, I can remember it to this day. It was like slow motion.
Yeah.
And I saw the horse's hind end like coming on top of me, and I rolled, and he like just kind of like
that's what happened to me
like
too.
His hind end and like the cantle of the saddle just landed like right here and just kind of pinched my arm, but didn't land on top of me.
Yeah.
But I hit the ground and I looked up and I was like, this horse is about to roll on top of me.
Yeah.
Oh,
and it's like still my biggest fear to this day.
Like I was like army
crushed.
Crawling, and like the hind foot came down like just beside my head, and we both stood up and we were both like, you know, like our eyes were both bugging out of our heads. We were both like very frantic, and I was like, dude, I'm sorry. And he just happened to just catch himself wrong. Like he clipped himself.
Well, that's the thing is it's like not like it's almost like not detectable, right?
Yeah,
like if a horse is going to like get really bothered and break in two, you have some like ways to get ahead of it.
All right.
But if they're just going to trip over their front end and drill you into the ground, that's just going to happen.
Right.
Like you're not going to know it. And you're definitely, even if you do know it's going to happen, like you're not going to feel like enough to like fix it before it comes unglued. So anyway.
Well, that's why I say it's like, Jesus, take the wheel. You just kind of got to be like,
yeah,
you know what? If it's my day, it's my day.
Yeah.
At least I died happy being horseback.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk more about that.
Yeah. Speaking of dying,
yeah.
Speaking of dying, I think we're ending pretty well.
Yeah. We need to.
Yeah, folks, if you are in the Nashville area, go see Alicia. She can help you out if you have horse problems.
Mm-hmm.
She's great. And then for the rest of you Hanyockers, you can go on Facebook or Instagram and find On the Move. and like that. You know, we've been plugging this, and from the lack of follows and likes, I don't think it's working too well. But I know Joe likes doing this, so I'm saying it. And then now I'm even aware there's a growing group of people who don't even want to go on these social media platforms. So buy a burner phone, make a fake account, go like the podcast. I don't even think it matters if it's you.
Yeah.
It just needs to be a like.
It could be
and a
your
follow.
cat or
it
your
helps
dog.
the algorithm. I think we don't really even know because remember we don't watch the numbers, but we think it needs lots of people. So whatever, you can do it if you want. Joe's probably much more convincing at that message. Either way, Alicia, thanks so much for hanging out with us. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah. Looking
guys
forward
next time.
to big old weekend. So
Oh, yeah.
All right. Good night,
Thank you,
everybody.
guys. Good night.